Hi, everyone, and welcome to Frank Fridays. We're super excited to have our amazing co-host here today, Carlina Moeller from Art Frankly.
Hello, everyone.
And we are speaking today with Ricky Lee, who is the Director of Communications with the Petzel Gallery. And Ricky's actually in Montreal today, so we're excited that he's joining us from Canada. Hi, Ricky.
Hi, nice to see you both. Thanks for inviting.
Absolutely. Likewise. We're excited for this conversation. So, Ricky, we'll just jump right in. We'd love to know, what is one challenge that you welcome in your day-to-day life?
Well, I think since I am a communications director at Petzel Gallery, one of the challenges and one of the fun things about what I do every day is that I go to work and I try to figure out how I can get articles written about either the shows that we have up at the galleries or even the artists that we represent. Since we have two galleries, one in Chelsea and one uptown, there's always work to do in general, but usually there's a lot of stuff going on. So my challenge is to try to figure out the best ways to get appropriate press for the shows and the artists that we have up at the gallery at any given time. And a lot of our artists are actually doing outside projects. So in addition to what they're doing at the gallery, sometimes they might have a museum show in another city or town. So it all comes down to trying to figure out the right press avenues to get them articles written about the shows to promote them. So that's basically what I do every day when I go to work.
Well, and I imagine that's a very exciting task, because from what I know of the Petzel Gallery, you guys have some really wonderful talent on your roster, but it's also probably a bit difficult considering that, there's quite a bit going on in New York City at a given time.
Yeah, and there's a lot going on for us because we're just about to move into a new gallery space, a much larger space, moving from 18th Street up to 25th Street in the middle of the block. And we're doubling the size of the gallery. So now we have capability to do 2 shows in Chelsea. In addition, we're keeping the space uptown. So that is just going to add more challenges and more excitement, I guess. I hope.
Yeah. Well, that sounds really great. And certainly like you have your hands full, Ricky.
Yeah, certainly. But I get help from people at the gallery. So everything's all right.
Fantastic. So, Ricky, what far-flung arts destination do you want to visit and why?
I've been thinking about that. A few people from the gallery just went to Freeze Soul because we did that at the first inaugural fair, which was very exciting. I sort of wanted to go to that, but I did not. But one of the places that I really would like to go to, and it's been on my bucket list for a long time, is Istanbul. Right now, as we're speaking, the Istanbul Biennial is going on. So I would be very interested to go to that and just see the different artists and get artists that are on display there in the booths and with the galleries, and maybe get exposed to some galleries that I don't know about already, which there's lots, and discover some new artists that might be in Istanbul that maybe don't have a presence in, the regular art capitals, Paris, New York, wherever. There's also an additional fair that's going on called Contemporary Istanbul. I know a couple of dealers who have booths at these fairs. So I would like to go to see the artwork, but I would also like to go to spend some time in the city and just take advantage of the culture there, the restaurants and the sites and all this other stuff that goes on in Istanbul that I've been wanting to see for such a long time.
Also on my bucket list. I've heard fantastic things about Istanbul and about this fair.
Yeah, one of our artists, actually, Ross Bleckner, is an artist that is represented by Petzel. He actually has a solo show that's opening, I think, either in a couple of days or just open, also in Istanbul. So that's what has put Istanbul on my mind just lately in these last few days or so.
Great. Well, I hope you get there.
I do too.
At the very latest next year.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
So the next question is actually one of my favorite questions, and I have a feeling it's one of Ellie's too, and we never get to ask this.
Sure.
But if you could be any art world notables plus one, who would it be, and to what event would you be that plus one?
I would like to be the plus one of Andy Warhol, who was a big inspiration for me when I was growing up, and probably one of the reasons why I have ended up in New York City working in the art world. I started getting a subscription to Interview magazine when I was in high school somehow, because I come from a very tiny village in North Carolina, but somehow I discovered that Andy Warhol had a magazine and I started reading it. So I would like to go to the Costume Institute ball at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in 1983 to that event. It was the year that they celebrated Yves Saint Laurent and 25 years of design. So I just think to go that night with that theme, with the people that would be there, like Paloma Picasso and that whole Warhol crowd and Yves Saint Laurent's entourage that traveled around with him everywhere that he went, I think that would be quite exciting. So that is what I would like to do, and that's who I would like to go with.
I got goosebumps. So I bet that was a night that would be a night to remember.
Yeah,
Great
I've seen
answer.
pictures.
Thank
It looks
you,
pretty
Ricky.
great.
Yeah.
I also really appreciate the specificity on that one. I mean, like, Ricky, you knew exactly where you wanted to be and with whom.
I thought about it. Well, I'm sort of obsessed with that period anyway, and also Andy Warhol is really the reason why I'm sitting here today talking about working in the art world, because he was a big inspiration, and I luckily enough got a chance when I first came to New York City to work at Magazine. It was just shortly after he died, but just to be there at the factory, and I met all those people, Fred Hughes, and there was always a throng of artists coming through. So that's why I chose that particular event and that guy.
I love it. That is really amazing. Well, our next question is bringing you a little closer to home, both literally and temporally. But we're curious, if you were to describe to us what your ideal kind of day trip or art activity would be today, what would it be?
Well, as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm sitting here in Montreal, Canada, which is one of my favorite places to go. I like to come here because I have to say, in the summertime, I like to come here because of the weather. There's a lot of greenery everywhere. The people are friendly and nice. There's always some sort of street festival, film festival, music festival, theater festival going on that imparts in the different sort of areas around town, which I really like. And also there are some really amazing museums here that, you can go to. Musée des Beaux-Arts always has some fantastic show going on. And as I've been coming here over the last couple of months, I've met some young art dealers who are actually doing some very interesting things here. So I don't think that people, especially in New York City, when they think about art destinations, I don't know, maybe they don't think about Montreal or Canada in general, but I think there's actually some very interesting things that are happening here. And so I like to come here for that.
I love that. Well, I personally haven't been to Montreal, so I might have to take you up on that art day trip one day.
Yeah, come on up.
And so maybe speaking just a bit more aspirationally and in the bigger picture, being so immersed in the art world and with a gallery like Petzel, you have quite a bit of access, I think, to what really makes this industry tick. But I am curious, if you had the opportunity to change something in this industry or improve something, what would be the thing that you would change?
Well, I don't necessarily think it's up to me to try to change the art world. I think it's up to the people in the art world to try to change with the changing times that we are living in. I think that just by me being a Black person, male in the art world, just by being in the art world, I'm sort of helping with some sort of change. You know what I mean? Because as much as people think that the art world is very inclusive and very liberal, what I have found just in my sort of travels throughout the art world and the different positions that I have held is that it's not really as open and welcoming as some people might think. I think it's great that some attention has been focused more on diversity and inclusion since the murder of George Floyd, when, all of a sudden the art world was paying more attention to people of color and this sort of thing. And they're making, it seems like, more of an effort to try to be more inclusive, although I do think I find it slightly hilarious that museums and different organizations have to actually hire like diversity sort of representatives to help to teach them how to hire more diverse staff to work in their institutions, organizations, galleries, and stuff like that. So in some ways, I think me, just by having gotten the positions that I've had over the last, since I've been in New York City working in the art world, I mean, I didn't just start working in the art world. Like I said, when I first came to New York City, I worked in magazines. So I started out as a magazine person, always surrounded by the art world, just because when I first came to New York City, I sort of fell into that sort of East Village art gallery scene just by the job that I had and the people that I knew. So I just think that I'm sort of helping to change the art world just by being in the art world. And if that makes sense, you know what I mean? I'm not an activist or anything like this, but there's not a lot of people like me working in the art galleries. If you walk around New York City and look at the front desk and see the staffs that are working in the galleries and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I certainly believe that change can be effected in practice, and that's probably the best way to do so. So I think, and it's interesting because it becomes an ongoing conversation I've had, but the art world is very, I think to your point, quite entrenched in a lot of ways. And people think of it as this very radically creative endeavor. And yet it still is quite, it is a marginalizing community in a lot of ways. So I think, Ricky, you've pointed to a number of issues in the art world, but also opportunities perhaps if we see them from the flip side.
I think there's more opportunities coming. I think people are making an effort to make more change. So that's fantastic, I think.
Well, I think we've had a really fun and enlightening conversation today. I loved the questions that you've kind of identified for us to chat about in our Frank Friday today. And so it was a lot of fun. Thank you for participating.
All right. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Ricky.